You know, art is a lot like science. Everybody's got a method to their madness, and I'm no exclusion to this. So hi everyone, I'm Ward, and welcome to my channel Wardrawsalot, and today I'm going to show you my process. So of course, before anything, you gotta sketch out what you're going to be coloring. I use the Crayola Erasable Color Pencil or the Pilot Color Eno Mechanical Pencil. Both come in various colors, but they have their benefits and disbenefits. The Crayola Erasable Colored Pencil is pretty cheap, is found anywhere where school supplies are sold, erases down beautifully, but gets dull quick and isn't great for detail. The Pilot Color Eno is great for details, but is a little bit more expensive and a little harder to find, so I got it online. When I sketch, I end up using both. Sometimes I want lines thicker, or I want some nice details, and both come in handy. It's no secret that I use COPICs, and honestly you can replicate this technique with any marker so long as you have the right colors picked. This is a COPIC hex chart, and I bought it online like 2 years ago, and I've used it every single time since I've bought it. It is the most useful purchase on how to color the best way possible. It helps pick out the right colors and the right grouping so everything looks seamless when you blend it. Let me go ahead and give you guys an example. So let's say I wanted to work with the skin base E000. I just follow the line down for what skin tones I want to use from there, and those shades will help me create like contours and blushes and just make an overall beautiful skin tone for whatever character you're going to be coloring in. Now, I've used this chart for years and I haven't relied on it as heavily as I once did when I started using it. Instead, it helped me kind of create a mental guideline as to how I should color with my markers. So now I know what colors to pick even if I don't have the chart in front of me, but I love using the chart because it really is a useful tool. So let's go ahead and talk about how I use the markers, or my technique. It doesn't matter what marker you have, I just use Copics because that's my preferred brand, but you can use any brand. So long as you do it the right way or use it the right way, you're golden. What I like to do is work in small sections. Does it take longer? Yes. But to me, I find that it produces a much better result and everything looks seamless, blended, beautiful, chef's kiss. You get the picture. So what I do, for example, I worked on the face separately even from the neck. I take everything one by one and go ahead and blend it out. Why? Because the smaller the surface, the more ink you're going to be able to put down in that small surface and keep it wet when blending. You want that little part of your paper wet, so when the colors blend, they blend better together. If you let it dry, does it mean that you can't reactivate it with more ink? No, of course you can. But I've developed my strategy for the sole purpose of making sure everything looks as seamless as possible. What I also like to do is layer the colors appropriately, or how I think is appropriate, I guess. So I lay down the base color of the skin, which you saw before. Then I added on top the little shadings that I needed to, and I went back again with the color that I used previous. So in order to blend, it's kind of a back and forth that you're going to be doing. But again, if you want the seamless blend look, you're going to have to go back and forth. Now, think about the long run though. This is going to use up more ink because you are going back and forth so much. But to me, it's worth it. That's just how I like to do it. Some people like to put down the darkest ink and then use the lighter inks on top of that and then kind of blend it out. I personally don't like the look of it. I like to kind of build up to that one color by layering all the other colors under it. So this way it looks like it's kind of melted into the skin or into the object. When it comes to creating shadows for the skin, recently I've been liking using like a blue-green for the lighter skin tones, and usually whenever I do darker skin tones, sometimes I'll do a purple or a blue-green there too, but I would just have to do a darker blue-green, so this way it kind of shows up on the skin better and doesn't end up just lifting the darker color from the paper, especially because if you put a lighter color on top of a darker color, it'll just kind of lift it and make it look murky, so plan accordingly. I like to use a lot of different inking supplies when I'm drawing, but my favorites have been the Tombow Fudenosuke brush pens. They come in a 2-pack, one with a hard tip and one with a soft tip. Of the two of them, I really do prefer the hard tip, and I'll explain why in a second. I drew up this little chart so I could show you guys the difference between the two of the pens. The Tombow hard tip can go thick, but not so much where you could lose control, and has really nice thin lines as well, so there's a little bit more control when you're using it because the nib is harder. While the Tombow soft tip is literally a brush nib, so it kind of imitates a paintbrush, but just a really tiny one, so you get these really wide strokes versus these really thin strokes, but there's less control there. I have another set of inks that I use just so I could, well, line the face. I really like using really small liner nibs when it comes to the face because I like doing smaller lines on the inside of the drawing and thicker lines on the outside. Here I have a Copic and a Micron. Both also have their benefits to them, and I like using them for different reasons. Overall, you could just get one or the other. I'm just a little extra, and I've collected a lot of different supplies over the years and try to use them whenever I can. We come back to the chart because I want to show you all the difference between the Copics and the Microns. I personally feel like the Copic ink tends to be a little lighter than the Micron ink, and sometimes it's just by the smallest amount, so it doesn't really make a difference, and sometimes it's by a huge amount, so it does make a difference. For the black .005 liners, both of them did fairly well, and both of them have pretty good ink, so both get the job done. Sticking with the black ink, now we're going to see the .05 and see the difference between the two. Now, when it comes to the .05, I see that there's a little bit of difference in the width of the nib. It's ever so slightly, but I notice it. And that ever so slightly thickness might make a difference in your artwork, so you just gotta kind of pick and choose which one you like better. Again, both of them have beautiful black ink, work really well. One isn't better than the other, it's just that I do have both in this case. Now, when it comes to the sepia or sepia ink, however you want to say it, that's when I see a clear difference. The Copic sepia ink is significantly lighter, especially when compared right next to the Micron sepia ink. That ink is significantly darker. Now, the difference for this, to me personally, is significant. The lighter sepia for the Copic would not write well on darker skin tones. It would kind of get washed out, while the Micron sepia ink would be able to be put on top of darker skin tones and wouldn't be washed out because the color is dark enough to show up. But this isn't just for the brown or sepia ink, it's for a multitude of colors that are from Copic versus Micron. Here I have the purple from Copic, which is, again, way lighter, versus the purple from Micron. Ignore the fact that it's a brush nib, it's still the same ink. They're going to use the same ink on any nib anyway regardless. So it's going to be a darker purple on the Micron side versus a lighter purple on the Copic side. So you just really have to pick which one you want to do for your drawing. Sometimes I like using lighter colors, and depending on the skin tone or the drawing or the setting, of course I'll use the lighter or the darker colors accordingly, or just depending on my mood. Almost about 90% of the time though, I'm gonna say I use black ink. Black ink is probably my favorite ink, and I feel like it shows up great on everything and everyone, so that's just what I prefer doing. Now, for the sake of this video, I went ahead and inked the entire face on camera. Usually, I at least do the eyes off camera because I get super close to the paper so I can see what I'm doing, because my depth perception is absolute garbage. So as I'm doing this, I was kind of struggling, admittedly, because I'm not used to it. But the rest of the face I usually do on camera anyway, so it's fine. Now, for the inside of the face, like the inner features, the nose, the lips, I used that really thin liner that I showed you guys earlier, the .005, like the ridiculously skinny small tip one. For the outer edges of the drawing though, I used the Tombow Fudenosuke pen to help give it some nice thickness and boldness and line variation. So you can tell that there's a clear difference between the facial? Wow, it's been a tough night, guys. Y'all don't even know. It's been a tough ass night. The facial features is like thinner, so like you can see that there's a clear difference between the facial features versus the outer edges, which would be like the hair, and even the hair within itself. Like the outer lines are thicker, the inner lines within it are thinner. when it comes to the body. I kind of forgot to film that, move the notebook like upwards, but the outside are again thicker lines and the inside is thinner lines. You could see what I mean right here. Sometimes I'll break that rule depending on the drawing and what's like going on and how thick I need something to be to show up, but overall same concept. Thicker lines on the outside. Sometimes I'll go back and thicken it up, or the Tombow Fudenosuke brush pens just make it way easier and I just press harder to make it thicker, and on the inside it'll be thinner lines. The last and final step is the white gel pen highlights that I put on the eyes, the cheeks, the lips, and the nose, and sometimes I'll add a background element depending on my mood. So yeah, that's my entire process on how I draw from start to finish, and I hope that it really helped you guys out. So yeah, thanks for watching, and remember I love you. Bye!